Okay, so how this is going to go is that we'll ask the question and perhaps we'll invite the speakers to say a few words about the question and then we'll let the dialogue take place. If you have, I used to have a little Telegram channel where you could, you know, put in your questions, but we don't have that anymore. What we want is to encourage people to put up your hand and ask questions. So I will kind of interject at some point and ask if there are any questions from the floor. So, okay, without further ado, the question is, how can art and creative practices maintain and assert its relevance in such challenging times? I think I would like to invite our online dialogue speaker, Myat. Myat, to perhaps first answer this question. First, Myat, if you'd like to introduce yourself again and answer the question so that all of us can take off from there. Myat?
Yes. Thank you. Thank you, Bridget. Everyone, nice to meet you, everyone. May I introduce myself? My name is Htay. Firstly, I'm really grateful to join this art forum. And in this discussion, I will share some of my experience in a current project, which is we have done recently in the artist community of Myanmar and between this difficult time. Firstly, may I share some of the contextual situation of Myanmar now. Now we are in the abnormal. The time is political and full of insecurity, and also economic destruction. So it is a bit hit to us, and we are concerned to the sustainable everyday life. So, but in the big city like Yangon, it seemed like a normal situation on the surface level. I think now after 3 years in the political problem of the country, most people are thinking like transform into their self, like self delusion kind of people. We are back in the normal. So actually, for me, it's no idea to think like that because I think we should see the real, like obviously, violence and war in the border and the small town in the whole country, and that will be affected to everyday life of our people and everything we in the whole country. So this is a new normal, or maybe abnormal, or we don't know yet. So that is uncertainty, the real uncertainty now. Like our moderator say that is my name in the early program. That Htay is based in Yangon or where? So that is a kind of reflected situation for the Myanmar artists who live in the country, or some of them, mostly the most important artists are they are going abroad and going to be a diaspora artist. But I think it must be change our social ideology to a new forms. So for example, one thing is there are more art exhibition in Yangon than before. That is something to wonder. This situation is kind of in the history as well. It's more exhibition and more gallery, the commercial gallery, and the more investment in the art business is kind of popping to the notice to the businessman, and kind of painting are increasingly being collected as an investment of the local buyer. So it seemed to be an improving situation, and how and where these forces come from. So I think young people are more interested in art and design and painting. Even their work may need to be academically progress. Most of the work like repeating the old style of the late master and the copying the popular culture of modern art style and kind of expressionism and abstract seemingly influence on them. But I think it is something like new wave, kind of new wave or new paradigm will be coming soon in our art community, and the one thing we should be uh, uh, carefully watching, not to be pretending to be enjoying life. So even in the close community, but on the other hand, I think some of them may trying to overcome from this illusional state, and they will try to global standard. And so this is kind of my positive point of view, because because we know this is a war situation for our country, something the most affected in the history. I think my age and I have my experience, because of probably coming off a new paradigm like as before, and we can say there's another wave. Like even we are the small community in the chaotic situation, but our artists expand in the abroad. They can be the another, they can do anything. They can do something for the inside the country, for the homeland. So we should carefully watch opportunity to use this as a tool to global idea, to give to the young artists and to help their experience to get the international knowledge. So we should think about providing more support in order to stimulate them with the 21st century idea. And this is our so-called uh, 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 intention. And because they already familiar with new technology since they born and they grew up in this era. So new generation is something ready to be a new arts. I think it is a way of resistance without arguing or opposition directly to the conflict of the power. And I believe it is a kind of changing situation as a obstacle to the chance. Therefore, in this difficult time, as we as a SOCAR have, SOCAR is as a acronym is for the School of Contemporary Art project. I hope my video presentation in the morning session and you may recognize or appreciate. And we decided to do more international collaboration and sharing knowledge and increase the number of local new artists for our future. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, Myat. Okay, so what I want to pick up from that is the idea about when artists make art, and this is I'm going to go down the line. Who is your audience? I think because Myat brought up a very interesting point about artists who get influenced to think, okay, they produce art that can be sold or has to be sold or purchased in order to become a successful artist, or there's art is entrenched in a particular traditional paradigm, whereas he's advocating with Soka that there should be an art of ideas, a form of communication that is sensitive to the lived experience. So my question actually is, and I'll go down the line, when you make art, who are you making the art for? And maybe this is good to start with, Taiki.
So first, to make it for myself. First, I'm the audience, and then I don't think about it that much. So it's part of the routine. Meaning, like I'm trying to, in the midst of say like conflicts or problems, I think for me personally, it's like a process of using art as a tool to understand, to comprehend the society, in this case, Thailand, the issues that can be sociological or personal as well. But, like using art without thinking, meaning like, it's part of everyday life, routinely. I think that's the most mundane. And yet, I think, that's what I'm striving for, like don't think about it, just take notes, and then elaborate on that thing. Thinking comes later. Yeah, just use feeling, navigating, and try to understand myself, try to understand the conflicts. I think so. Yeah, and then the outcome is like what I think that is appropriate at the moment in times. Yeah, and try to make it, like deliver mostly deadlines. But just try to catch the deadline and let it out. Yeah, all these emotional conflicts, whatever, like, yeah. And sometimes I don't even understand what is it about, when I finish a work. And that's beautiful. Yeah. I don't know what it is, but the audience will respond, and sometimes the critics, when I read it, oh yeah, that's my instinct, relying on instinct, and then let the audience bounce, reflect on that. And yeah, most of the time is beautiful for me, I think.
It is, sorry. You don't think about it, but you know what you produce is just so incredibly beautiful. Just a couple of things that to pick up from there is something also that resonated with Chun Wei, because he was talking about how when he creates art, he's thinking about, from the origin point of view, is about trying to understand himself. So I think this is something that I feel is important. A point was brought up in the meeting we had upstairs that you were not privy to, where where it was mentioned that all the different regions or countries in Southeast Asia have very unique types of problems or unique types of conflicts or situations which we may not understand. And the common denominator here, and this is Myanmar included, and now Taiki has given his answer, is that art is a way of, first of all, understanding that within yourself, and then producing it to communicate to the world, and you're not in control of it in that sense. And I'd like to invite, in this sense, because Lisa works with groups of artists, maybe you'd like to respond to that as well.
Thank you. I work with both institutions and organizations. Institutions meaning the University of the Philippines and its immediate surroundings, and artist organizations like the Concerned Artists of the Philippines, which is an arts collective founded in 1983. And in working with and across both, it is very important to take three things into consideration. First would be the intent of artistic production. What is art for? This is a classic question asked many times and in many ways in the art world and beyond, which artists and cultural workers from different generations have to grapple with. And each generation, I feel, has their own way of answering that and responding to the times in each case. So intention is important. Then there's also process, how different artists or art collectives engage with each other and create a whole community. Then, of course, third would be the effect, some of which is beyond the reach or control of individuals, but as a whole society, we get to see how art impacts the communities we engage with in different ways. And I think this also ties to something that Aung was responding to earlier, which is what kind of, who do we attempt to reach? And I think first it would also be important to remember how the challenge for art is, especially today, is how it can continue to do what it does best, which is to, I saw this in a quote in the wall exhibition of Mr. Choi, how does art make humans more humane? And it's to ask difficult questions, it's to point out realities which might not be evident or visible in the first place. And in doing so, art has this very vital role to play in our society. Then I think there is also the question of how artists, the work that artists do, are also fundamental to creating solidarity and affirming that solidarity, even among social movements. It's a big word, but the little things and the individual works and gestures that people do all contribute collectively to that. Like in the exhibition that we did, we showcased one bamboo cart, which during the middle of the lockdown was made by a former student in our college. But she put that cart out during the height of the pandemic lockdown when food was so difficult to access. And it was a very simple cardboard sign. Give what you can give, take what you only need. And that set into motion many other people coming out to not defy or challenge the lockdown and to create their own what we call community pantries. It was, of course, inspired by community pantries elsewhere in the world. But that gesture from one bamboo cart helped spark an entire movement of community pantries, which helped us during the first 2 years of the pandemic. So that's what I'm saying when art and creative practice has that power and potential and defies what the idea that art is non-essential. There was a survey, I think, here in Singapore during the lockdown of that the occupation of the artist was top one among the non-essential occupations. That reverberated with artists in the Philippines and elsewhere. And the experience of the pandemic taught us that art is essential, and we turn to art especially to survive and to have hope. Yeah.
Thank you, Lisa. I just want to, because a lot of what you do is really about a kind of an activism, and in particular with warm bodies and the concerned artists of the Philippines. And this will apply to when I asked Chun Wei to answer the question. And also what Myat said, which is we cannot pretend that everything is okay, or we shouldn't pretend that everything is okay. And this is pertaining to what is going on, in the outside world and conflict and so on. How, if it doesn't really affect us directly, how is it that we're pretending it's okay, or is it okay for us? So maybe for you, Chun Wei, when you make your art, are you only focusing on the time when you're not okay, or do you make art just in general? Is that a question? Yeah.
Thanks, Bridget. I think when I present that set of works, it is not like consciously knowing that you're not okay and try to fix it. It has always been a journey that you pay attention to. Like for my case, the journey has always been interested in artifacts. You're constantly kind of being very active, looking, scouting, touching, bringing it to your little hermit studios to sort of like to perhaps maybe to say you're kind of interested in life. So, but of course, when art gives you back or speak back is that it gives you the little glimpses of truth. That little glimpses of truth will penetrate the real world, and then you find problems. and then you find that it is just slogans, or it is just, sayings that to console ourselves, or to kind of calm down the society, perhaps. I may be wrong. But as an artist, I think that individualness, that process, first of all, it is a feeder to myself, and perhaps sinking in to become a burden, and therefore there's an urge to create. So that kind of intimacy, that kind of depth, without shortcut keys, they are very important. They're very important as a studio practice, because that kind of knowledge is really perhaps maybe when art is within the context of university, maybe sometimes it can be seen as not so fashionable. But thankfully that with these platforms that, getting to be invited to be on these very important platforms to speak about studio practice is rather something that I'm grateful for. Because through time, as we kind of live through time, constantly paying attention to all these intimate moments, daily lives, art in life, and from life for art, and back again, that this cycle and this kind of loops, they are very healthy. They are a very healthy rhythm. And of course, if to be seen from that kind of angle, then art is a necessity. And I think with so many kind of tools that is trending, right? We kind of lose sight of what is the real process. So nothing wrong with technology, nothing wrong, with the tools, but it's how the tools are actually kind of encasing us in terms of our views, openness, and other things. So our characters are affected. So back to the questions that whether or not it's an issue of really tracking for problems. No, it's actually tracking for things around. Curious, right? The word is the word is curious. Being curious, and curiosity is part of the nature of myself, or perhaps shall I say human beings. But maybe we are made to be not curious anymore, if consumption is kind of like creeping over, taking over. So I like to see myself as artists consuming, as audience, and then seeing that context to counter the culture that I'm dissatisfying. So that's more of the way I would put it. Yeah.
Thank you. I learned something from that. Oh, enlightenment. I need to write it down. Well, not now. So thank you for that. It's more of a way, again, it's very similar to Taiki in a way of processing, and there's a cycle in your practice, and not that you're specifically looking out for it. I think I want to, in this way, move on to Giang. For your work, obviously there's a bit of memory involved, and also your family heritage, the one that you presented on in this situation. Talk a little bit about that, and how you think that kind of work speaks to the audience today. What messages do you think it conveys?
So for me, I am the generation born after the war, and I feel like there's still so much that I don't really understand. Like the heritage of my family, that we are from the north, and my father and my grandfather is part of the Communist Party. Growing up, I only learned, one part of the history, and then when I became an artist, I feel like as an artist, it is demanding for me to dig deep into the history, to really understand what happened from different angle, and then respond to it as a way to understand it myself. And then after that, hopefully it can stir up some discussion, or it can help others, younger people like me, to be eager to learn more about the past. Yeah.
Wow. Okay, so you're interested. You're interested in the things that you don't know. So that's quite powerful because in our little discussion we had upstairs, I think it was Dr. Manny Ling was talking about curiosity, that if we keep on focusing on the things we already know, it's really not very interesting or very productive. So on that note, maybe we come to Gum. Is there something about your history that you don't know that you want to know? And does that drive you to make art?
Actually, yeah, I think back to your first question with with him, and so I think I'm the same. I do the work because myself first. I think somehow like I think in my dream, most of my dream don't have color. Few time have color, but and so that's why my painting like a daydream with a I try to do with color and something that so I hope with some for audience with someone always dream night dream have color, maybe they don't interest in this and something like this, but back to the curiosity about history, about things. And so I think in beginning, who cared about history? Because my grandfather, who the kind of teacher and intellectual, and so he talked to me about so many, because I'm young that day, and so follow my grandfather. He's talked about Thánh Gióng as a kind of history teller of Vietnam and many history things. And so it's not really, because I love the story, and so I just follow. And so I think one is it come from that childhood. But in the childhood, the history of childhood is because I interest in history because I love. In beginning, I learned violin and piano because my family they do that job and that teach me, and so it's quite hard for me, and so I love to drawing and some other thing, and so in my generation, that drawing make me focus, and then because my generation is after the wartime, Vietnam is involved in other conflict, and also the day condition of living is quite down, and somehow maybe heroism culture and something, it's quite violent in the street, in the class, with the teenage and children, and so in the teenage time, the drawing make me focus on that, even thinking, when you go the quite chaos in the street and fighting every moment, in the class, in the football match, in every moment, and so it's difficult to focus, and so the drawing make me focus in that chaos and violence, and so then at the teenage, with the limited of the information of Vietnam that day, and so I love to know that history of art. And so also history of art relate to history of war and other thing. And so I know about, through that story and something, I know about Michelangelo try to protect the heritage of Romance when the people fight with the Medici family, and they run and they try to destroy the ceramic and other artwork things in the Medici castle or some, and so in the story history, I read, and he become hero to protect some sculpture and something with the people pass by to don't destroy this. And so for me, you know, that kind of interest in history in the become from history and become from hero from art, you know. So hero after hero, I think every artist is hero, like a writer, many writer like cô bé Bán Diêm là Andersen. I think for me also it's from Napoleon time. You know, Napoleon is not my hero, but Anderson, in who at the same time, you know, from the poor, how he can get education is quite hard for him, and how he put his heart to his writing and something, and so, and yeah, it's I find the history with the hero in that kind of. The people balance, you know, in the hard time. Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that. Actually, it helps me with the next question. Your personal experience and your understanding of the history and wanting to make out of all of that conflict and violence and dealing with that instability, treating art practice like a form of stability. If you were talking about drawing, I want to now ask this question. Maybe Myat can answer. Have you experienced conflict yourself, and has that translated into any kind of idea about how you want to make art, to share it?
For me, is I may starting with your first question is from my talk. Is who is the audience? So it is because of the I have also something difficulty when I'm starting some of the new work I created in the public is something, you know, strange response from the public, you know, because for now I'm thinking like when someone is asking to who is your audience, I think the first audience is me, myself, and then because of it's thinking like we are creating something, but we are not a person for the privilege to do or to, you know, to overwhelming to the people. So it's we are the one of them, one of people, one of a person from the public. So it's like kind of I'm thinking like I'm the one of the audience. So it's if you see you know meet like that kind of, you know, artwork, you see is how you feel, you know, how you think. So this is the one example is how I starting communication with the public. So in Myanmar is art and culture is based on the craft and the religious, as I mentioned in my video. So is we have some of the group. They are like they are like art lover. So this is really genre, and this is really beautiful. What is art lover is, you know, kind of, you know, very different group. Some of them is, you know, every art, you know, every art is in history, or the every ideology, or every, you know, beautiful fragmented pieces or thing. But some of them they are willing to be eager to think. So it's a think first, and the visual is second. So it's I'm trying to be create this project as I'm telling to my fellow artists and my friend artists. They are mostly they are the performance artists. So it's a, you know, the performance like very lively, and you know that create on the spot. So it's very fresh. So that is, we starting to communicate the people with the fresh art. So that for my mention, the fresh art is kind of performance, but not only performance. In the some of the other visual work is also, freshly is by their idea. So we have to, recommunicate, re, in touch again with the art lover, because we are in Myanmar has a big group of the art lover, even they are rich or poor, or they are, any educational background. So another audience is a student. So they are, it's as I mentioned before, is the young generation, they are really ready for the technology eras. Even they are born in the poor country or rich country, or is this, we cannot choose where we have wish to born, So that student is really, open-minded. So I as much as I have experience, so that's I really focus on them, and I really wish to communicate and talking with them, and how they how the idea and they what they wanted to be create. And or some other audience, it's like as I mentioned, the thinker, which is some people is that they wish to be think. It's more than the visual, more than the product. So and other very important, or maybe small group, is the buyer, the or collector, So for currently they are really interest on art, but it's I'm really interested how and what kind of art they really interest. So I'm really interested to be communicate them as well, and it's like to discuss, and the what kind of art we need now. And yeah, as I heard from the other speaker, is as Cam mentioned, that we need to be balanced. And so I'm really thinking is making balance is first, as because of some of the program we did as not mention the name, but we mentioned the project's title, and because of we are target only to not to be making popular for our name as an artist. So I think that is a good way for now, because of we have another difficulty to mention and to showing up like a big name, So that is this time is something the most people living and working in the low profile. So that's it mean not only uh, for the working something very serious things in political, but it's the audience who interests now in the more art is they are not really interested about the serious things in the political. So that's mostly is non-narrative or non-political, or I mean political is not like the mention the slogan or mention logo or image or something like that. But I think the we are as a human, as a kind of person of the political person, and we do something, and we need to be we communicate with the nature, and rethinking our community, and it's all things are like you know, our you know, that that's kind of the making balance, I think. So it's the another audience is we didn't mention and we didn't think listening to our you know, audience, but they are also something important. But for now, they are not you know, uh, uh, you know, not sure, you know, because of their like you know, critics and the authority. You know, the authority is very important for the other country, maybe because it's most of the events and the exhibition are, you know, working and dealing with the authority. So, but we have no any authority for now, because of we we cannot make dealing with the well, who is authority. You know, we don't know yet. So that is a thing for now. And other thing I mentioned is critics. The in Myanmar art scene has critic is, you know, not so much role already, but even like curator as well. And so that's, we have to do a lot things to recommunicate with the art audience. The audience, like I said, is art lover. So this is my experience as far as, you know, your question is concrete, but it's my answer is something general or widely. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Myat. Actually, that's quite relevant to the question I asked, although in a different way, about experiencing conflict and communicating it. Perhaps we can kind of paraphrase that and invite, we could maybe go down the line again. Can I ask Taiki? Yeah, to talk a little bit about, you know, in respect to what Myat was saying, if we're talking to a particular audience, when we have experience, or in your own experience, if experience conflict, how do you make your voice heard? Or is that something you think about?
How do I make my okay? I think for me, I feel that maybe because of like my personal taste, the work tends to alienate it more than embracing the audience. You know, like perhaps because, you know, we all like have different tastes, but the works that I love, cherish, often comes from like loneliness, you know, like alienation, like, you know, like personal doubt, insecurity. So when in the midst of this, it's very abstract, and therefore, you know, like communication is like, oh, I have to communicate to myself first. And in a way, because I think creating work for the community, like for the larger audience, is very difficult for me. You know, like trying to have everyone can relating to the work. You know, that's I'm not cut out for that. So in a way, I have to engineer it in a way that is suitable, that I think is yeah, I don't know, I'm just
It's very good.
Yeah,
It's very
no.
good. Sorry, Ayo, getting this,
Yeah.
it's very good. It's like you're creating a fiction outside
but
of yourself.
there's an interesting question that I think is really beautiful, the dreaming in black and white. And then in terms of, if I get asked that question about learning history of your own history, I think that's scary as well. It's like I'm thinking of like James Joyce's quote, you know, the famous quote, like history is a nightmare that you are trying to escape from. Because but in a way it's essential to understand the history of yourself, your whatnot, you know, like. But if I do it, I will have to kind of like make it more elusive. You know, like understand history, but it's not like dialect or like you have to create like multi dimensions in a way, I find that creating puzzles, for me, I love to be surprised, even by my own work. Like surprise is like the beauty of creating art for me. For example, I just finished editing one three-channel video piece. I wrote an abstract idea of that, but once you edit, it's different person from that initiated idea. And when I finish editing, I don't know who that person is anymore. So it's evolved, you know. So now I have to rewrite the blurb, you know, the abstract. I try to understand myself and the work, that artwork, that person again. Like you have changed. Like it's like a relationship. So it's always evolving for me. Yeah, and I wish I have answer to a lot of things, but I don't. So yeah.
That's why there's art. No, thank you, Taiki. That's wonderful. Lisa, you want to make a comment?
Yes, in terms of making voices heard,
Yeah.
I think having a community is very important. Physically, I can relate to the problem of making one's voice heard. I have a very soft voice in real life, and without the microphone, it's barely audible. Or even in speaking in front of people, the more people you speak with, the louder that the more you can make your voices heard with tools and with a whole community. And I think that was the experience with Concerned Artists of the Philippines, for instance. It started out as a campaign among individual artists from the theater, film, writers industries who were being censored at that time. They could not make their voices heard during the early 1980s when martial law was newly lifted in the Philippines. And more voices were being clamped down. And what the artists did back then was to unite as a sector, published a manifesto, made different actions in order to make the artists community as a whole voice heard on a national scale. That ended up in a campaign titled Free the Artist, Free the Media, which eventually became an organization. But in these individual actions by individual artists who all cared about the country, freedom in different ways, by coming together, it was possible to make all of these diverse voices heard as one common entity, and to give a strong statement against censorship, which was the main issue at that time. So solidarity is, I think, a very important factor in making one's voices heard, especially if we are speaking truth to power. We talk to, or we try to collaborate and talk to people and entities outside our comfort zone as well. That may include government officials, that may include other communities or sectors, and that may include other groups and artists from beyond our own countries or regions as well. But in stretching or pushing that level of comfort beyond what we are used to, I think that creates a very important space for more dialogues and therefore more voices to come into the conversation. I think our respective countries and regions have very rich histories of how solidarity is manifest. There are many lessons as well as different experiences from each. And it's very important to go back to that history, to have that sense of intergenerational knowledge passed on. In our case, when another Marcos, the son of the former dictator, became the president, the current president today, that caused also a quite difficult situation for the new generation whose parents lived through the dictatorship. And I belong to that generation which did not grow up during martial law, which did not have direct experience of the abuses that previous generations experienced. That I learned through books or listening to the stories of survivors as well. So that kind of intergenerational dialogue was very important. And art had a very big role in creating these conversations. We have what we call memory projects, where we invite, because art created a safe space to talk about these memories and experiences and facts in a time when there was a lot of historical distortion going on. So in looking back at films of the past or artworks of the past, and talking about it, how were these made? What was the material? What was the story or the inspiration behind it? And what was the story of the people behind it? It became possible to create this space for these voices which were forgotten or silenced to surface. And it need not be a loud voice at the start because these can get amplified as long as the momentum continues. So that's just what I wanted to add into the conversation.
Thank you, Lisa. No, I like that. Picking up on intergenerational dialogue, I think let's shift gears a little bit. Same question, but to Chun Wei. I think I want to ask you, as an educator, how would you not teach your students, but how would you foster, for your students to have their voices heard?
Thanks, Bridget. Yeah, it's something that besides doing my own work, my work becomes promptings for that enlarged desire to see students become individual in a good sense, that they have their voice, and they will find a place, and they became authentic. And I think that conversion, not conversion, that transformation, right, that you can see as an educator after, if you are teaching for some years. So, to add on to that, I have my ex-student who work in Singapore. So, and because of that time, I can see that the fruition. You can see that they found their angle, and then I think. So the question is that important, right?
To find your own voice?
Yeah.
So how do you make yourself heard? Like if you are experiencing some kind of conflict or there's something you want to say,
All right.
I think it's more, how would you foster or encourage your students to have their voices heard?
Oh, yeah. So the encouragement comes from, first of all, to get them to sort of like be interested in seeing the environment in a kind of immersive way, so they kind of not detached. So first of all is that how do I kind of make them involved, not just physically, but in their being and their daily kind of presence. So especially now, education is so pragmatic in a way that that the time to spend sometimes it's like a mentoring, or sometimes it's like if I open up my life and if I'm interested in your life through the conversation or dialogues, right? And I think that would be that kind of tool to build that bridge, build the bridge for themselves. They will eventually be autonomous, be able to do that on their own. Yeah. So I think that is a great challenge, because that is the beginning of them actually searching for themselves, the depth, not necessarily the same kind of pathway as what I've gone through or the friends who have gone through as well. Yeah. So that kind of building that kind of threads of voices really is something that I see that as the art of education. Yeah, that crafting that is not easy because you don't want to impose as well. So at times I do make that mistakes, I must admit. But at times, really well after seeing the results, or maybe seeing a little bit of that outcomes. Yeah. So yeah, so it is a very interesting question about the process eventually. art and education. Yeah.
No, but I like this idea because you're sort of saying, you know, in this digital age, right? And we've talked about this a little bit to some extent about technology and the influence of technology on art making and pragmatism and so on. But a lot of the new generation or the students who are actually our future, maybe are not so interested in this immersion because one way of doing it is to make sure they're engaged, to be in the environment. So they can be interested, they can be stimulated, they can want to say something, they can want to have an opinion or a perspective. So that's a very big challenge, I think. And maybe this is a good question to move to Giang, because I think it comes back to history and maybe your history. If you, maybe you're not interested in wanting people to be interested in their histories, but do you see your work as encouraging more Vietnamese people to look at their histories and to engage with that in a very, you know, in a very sensitive way? And what does that say about you?
Well, I want to add some more about the previous question first.
Okay, sure.
So me and Cam, actually we just discussed about that in the break. And we talk about how, you know, in the past, actually there is no historian, art historian in Vietnam. And we also didn't have any public support from the government. So that's why a lot of things happens in the early stage of Vietnamese contemporary art. That there was no, not enough documentation. And then, so there were many artworks of senior artists that was not heard. And then in Vietnam, there was a time when there were some gatekeepers. So when the Westerners or the foreigners, when they came to Vietnam, they need to go through those gatekeepers in order to reaching out to, you know, the other artists. So it was kind of a difficult time, but I think nowadays everything is much more easier. And because of that, that situation really encouraged Vietnamese artists to open our own initiative. So there were many artist-run art spaces in Vietnam, and that is the way for us to make our voice heard. And also in this digital age where you can easily upload your works online, right? I think kind of for me the only way to be heard is to just keep doing what you want to do. Really genuinely, and just keep doing it, and then public it in any platform that you feel like you are comfortable with, and then eventually you will be heard. I think so, yeah. And about the question for me, I think, well,
You've kind of answered the question, but
Yeah.
carry on. Carry on.
yeah, I think so. Yeah, yeah.
I mentioned a little bit about this.
Well, let me kind of, I need to extract something because I thought that was very interesting. I asked that question of Giang. I don't know how many of you remember that, but I think she's kind of answered the question, even though she said she was not answering the question. And that is about what you do if you're exploring your own history and your expressions, and how the two are linked actually. Because if there was at a time when there's no documentation, no reference value, most of us are not very familiar with that, because we can just go to a library, you know, and find the book and read it, or we find our best
Actually,
friend.
that day we have only one roll of film, that's a film roll time, and so most of the roll of film is a family photo. Only 2 or 3 posts is a shooting the exhibition. It's my roll cell. Yeah.
Sorry, I was going to say, and most of us have our good friend Google, but you know, come back. Thank you, Kam. We come back to this and this idea of actually, if it doesn't exist, then you make it yourself, and then you share it, and this is how you influence people with ideas, and the stories. Sorry, Kam, you want to say something?
Yeah, I think I want to talk a little bit about balance, because
sorry.
about balance. Yeah, balance. Yeah, because the artists themselves is kind of balance the life and art, the vision or the reality or many things. And so I think it's about we are human, we are individual, that kind of thing to balance. And so with the difficult time, war time or pandemic time or something, it unbalanced of the system, of the structure, of the bigger than individual. And so it's difficult. I think about back to the how they can hear the voice of the artist. In the difficult time, they need the balance. Even the voice, you know, you can compare with the cannon voice or bombing voice or rocket voice, and they looking for that voice of naturally artist with the color. You must have a push to have the one color, and you try to balance the color and the composition or the rhythm or everything. And so the artists themselves must have a naturally voice to push them inside, and they balance with this. And so once the bigger picture, like in bigger scale, and so many people looking for that kind of balance, I think. And so in the happy time, it's difficult. The artist, they hear the voice because they have many. They have you compare. Disco, it doesn't matter, but other thing is the voice of enjoy and the voice of many things. And so even you self promote, even you try to many things and live less and blog and everything. And so, but in the happy time, much difficult. You can your voice can be here, and you must using many different way and using many things to do that. But in the difficult time, I think, yeah, like a Myanmar artist, he mentioned about, yeah, in difficult time, it's a civil time there, civil war time there. Still, you know, the people looking for what they're looking, and so it maybe it's the time for art. Yeah, I believe that. I think about balance, about naturally balance.
Yeah, no, thank you, Kam. That's very beautiful. I think I want to liken what you said about balance or finding balance with Lisa's remark or observation about hope. Yeah, and we are coming to the end of the dialogue, but I think I would like to end on that note because I think that that's a very important note. What I'm hearing about this question that we just asked, how can art and creative practices maintain and assert its relevance in such challenging times, is really about persistence, courage, balance, hope. And I like Giang's very simple take on it. You know, you propagate it on any platform, you know, until it reaches a point where people cannot ignore it. And that's just such a significant thing, you know, for us. We are not, you know, I think in the contemporary world, we take for granted. We take for granted that once we've posted something or we've done this sometimes, you know, that's it. But if there's something we truly believe in and we're persistent with it, then it can reach much, much greater heights, and our voice will be much louder at that level. So yeah, I think I want to end on that note, and I want to thank Myat. Thank you for joining us from Myanmar. Thank you so much for your presentation earlier as well. Thank you, Kam's exhibition, and for allowing us to have the forum in the exhibition. Yang Le, thank you. Choy Chun Wei, thank you very much. Also your exhibition in Htay. Lisa, thank you so much for sharing. And of course, Taiki, wonderful to have you here. Thank you. And everything that you've said, all of you. Thank you very much, and I'd like to end the dialogue here. So I want to maybe open a last couple of questions to the floor first, if there's anything that anybody wants to ask. Oh, there is.
Hi. So I'm from Singapore, and so I'm recently trying to do some paintings, visual arts, and stuff to raise money for Gaza and things like that. So which can be controversial or You know, it will start a dialogue, and I would love to hear from your experience. When the talking points, when the opportunities to speak, or when the sentiments and the feelings, when they are all very new to us, especially for some of us here in Singapore, how do we, what would you do? How would you protect the conversation? How would you protect the process of conversation, or the rights to having a conversation about, you know, about why we paint, why we make art, why we deal with these feelings? Why do they have to be public? Why do they have to be seen? How do we allow for these conversations to happen? That's my question.
Lisa, you want to say something?
Yeah. I just wanted to start by emphasizing how important it is to educate amongst ourselves what our rights are. If we want to protect our rights, the first thing to do is know what our rights are. For instance, the right to freedom of expression, freedom of the press. How are these protected in current laws? For instance, in our respective countries and in international law would be very important, because it's knowing what the factual basis for our rights are, that we know how to, the boundaries and the possibilities of how we can move safely. This was actually what prompted, for instance, the exhibit Warm Bodies in the first place, when our organization submitted a report to the UN Special Rapporteur for Freedom of Expression, which detailed a lot of the violations of freedom of expression in the Philippines for the past 5 years. So these can range from censorship to extrajudicial killings of artists even, unlawful arrests, and simply the act of censoring based or filing false charges. But that process helped us a lot, because we were compelled to study how is freedom of expression not an abstract term, but something concrete. So that was a first step, education amongst ourselves as to how to protect the rights, our rights as artists, and second, the rights of the communities who we express our solidarity with. For instance, in the Gaza, in solidarity with many Gaza communities, because there are many Palestinian refugees in the Philippines as well, apparently, creating safe spaces for talking about the situation, creating safe spaces for interacting with people who have been displaced, and creating safe spaces to create and respond to that was very important. Just maybe so.
Yeah. No, that was very good. Thank you. Anyone else want to respond? Yang Le?
Yeah, so I think when we're talking about censorship, it is what has been happening in Vietnam since the beginning of the Vietnamese contemporary art. And also, like Cam has said, between our discussion, because the government didn't support art, especially contemporary art and performative art, because performance is the type of art that can be very difficult to control. So what our Vietnamese artists did was we perform it, we make art in any way we can. It can be on the street, it can be a conversation in a morning coffee session. It can happen anywhere. It doesn't need a formal situation. And yeah, so and talking about the safe place I think is very crucial to have a community, to build a community of artists, and because that community is our safe place. Yeah.
Thank you, Giang.
I
Sorry, Kam.
agree. Yeah, with that kind of community artist, fellow artist, it's quite because I want to say about tell story because I love to tell story. In the poor time in Vietnam, it's a Bùi Xuân Phái that name famous, but his name his time he's poor and the thing, and so he shared the room, small room with wife and a few children, and so it's limited space, and so he have borrow the money that really big money that day, and later he borrowed from the collector friend collector painting, and so later he gave many painting to exchange to him, and to build a mezzanine in the room, in the room he built that kind of mezzanine. He buy wood and thing, and so himself and with the help he built the mezzanine up there. It's a safe place for his painting, because even long before most of safe place is under the bed. If you do the abstract painting or something, other people don't understand, you must hide under the bed. And so it's a really safe space with a mezzanine, and so can store until, can store a long time with many finished painting or unfinished painting in the mezzanine. And also the people, many other artists from that day tells a lot about what they said or that they discussed. It's really safety in that mezzanine to climb up the mezzanine and discussion about art about there. And because they selected to talk with, it's not open like this. And they selected who talk about it, and so they sit in mezzanine up there, and so they know who danger and know better. And so when they're sitting there to talk about art, and so it's safe because even different mind and no violent acting can be happen there because limited space. Yeah.
Thank you, Kam. Actually, I want to point out that what Kam's answer refers to is very important. This is a typical lived experience, if you want to use that phrase. For the experiences of people that differ, we don't physically understand what it's like to have to hide or conceal things. And this idea can apply in layers. We're talking about Lisa's type of safe space, a safe space to engage, a safe space where you're heard and not judged. So there are all these different layers, and I think maybe the right way of framing it, in terms of how to protect what you have to know, what it is you want to protect or what it is you're supposed to protect, how you protect it, but also that where you want to make this heard. How do you want to engage to demonstrate that you're trying to protect something, or to demonstrate that you're trying to express something about a hurt or a conflict. And I think that this, the different platforms like this forum is just one of them. And the diverse answers that you're receiving is reflective of the diversity of the region, the profiles of the different artists and their practices, and what they really care about and how they actually protect it, and at the same time share it with us. So I think on that note, I want to end also because we're very short on time. So thank you for your question. I didn't get your name, but thank you for your question from Singapore. And yeah, thank you, audience. Thank you, artists again. Myat, thank you for joining us from Myanmar. And that brings the dialogue to an end. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.